We'll be with you until 6 o'clock. It's currently 4:06. Quite warm Wednesday afternoon. However, I know that we usually talk a moment about the weather at the beginning of our broadcast. This morning was actually a little breezy, not too humid. I walked out of my house and, that's not so bad.
Yeah, it's going to be like that tomorrow morning, too, from what I understand as well. And that's what I'm saying. Look, this quote-unquote cold front that I hear some of these meteorologists say, it just means that the humidity won't slap you in the face as hard when you get out in the morning.
You and I won't have to take our glasses off when we leave the house. That's it. It's not a cold front.
Yes.
But I will say that it was quite pleasant. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean it was cool.
Yeah.
All right. That just means that I wasn't a sweaty mess walking from the front door to my car.
It just goes to show what we have gotten used to here in Louisiana, that it can still get into the 90s, and we don't think it's that bad if the humidity is much lower than normal.
Yeah, well, it's who we are and where we live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yes.
All right, so 4 o'clock. Let's talk a little bit about Rose McGowan and Asia Argento. Now, if you're not familiar with this, these are two women that are directly and heavily involved with the Me Too movement.
Yes.
Okay, and Asia Argento has now been accused of sexually assaulting a boy and paying him off.
A little bit more about that. Her boyfriend was the late Anthony Bourdain.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. And now the story is that she's involving him and claiming that he was the one that encouraged her to settle with the boy. Basically what happened, Jimmy Bennett, 17 years old, figures his name was like Jimmy.
Yeah.
It even has that boyish sound. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy knew Asia Argento, and when he was 17, Argento was 37. And a member of Jimmy's family drove him to the Ritz-Carlton in Marina Del Rey, California. Mm-hmm. And Argento asked the family member to leave.
Yeah.
Gave Bennett alcohol and performed a sex act on him. And then engaged in intercourse with him. Mm-hmm. At the time, the age of consent, or rather the time he was 17, the age of consent in California was 18. So he was under the age of consent.
Right.
Now, according to Argento, he then continued to text message her regularly, sending pictures, and she denied it. Okay, she denied that anything happened. However, leave it to TMZ. All right. TMZ gets a hold of her text messages.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a text message that she sent out that says, I had sex with him. It felt weird. I didn't know he was a minor until the shakedown letter. Oh. Now, totally untrue because she knew this kid.
Yeah.
All right. She didn't just meet him in the hotel lobby and said, hey, come on up to my hotel room. Mm-hmm. And so they settled for $380,000. And according to Argento, Anthony Bourdain, her ex-boyfriend, basically facilitated that deal.
Absolutely. And here's where Rose McGowan comes in, because Rose McGowan, if you may remember, she is one of the main victims that has accused Harvey Weinstein of sexual assault. Well, she went out on Twitter and she put the message out about Asia Argento, that she got to know her 10 months ago, that their commonality is the shared pain of being assaulted by Harvey Weinstein. And then she also went on to say, I'm sure none of us know the truth of the situation, and I'm sure more will be revealed. Be gentle. Now, she has since deleted that tweet.
Well, it's too late.
But she has been called out rightly for putting that tweet out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's a couple of scenarios that are my opinions of it. All right. First off, if the scenario were the other way around, and this was a 37-year-old man and a 17-year-old girl, and the age of consent was 18, we would be getting a completely different opinion from Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
She certainly would not be out there saying, be gentle. I know this guy. Let's get the facts straight.
Right.
She'd be throwing him under the bus and attacking him and trying to encourage as many people as she could within the Me Too movement to do the same.
Yeah, and that's what this Me Too movement, part of it obviously is to protect women from sexual predators that are men. And for that part, I'm behind that. But the other part of it is as well is to assume that men that are accused of sexual assault and such are guilty until proven innocent.
Yes.
And a lot of times this Me Too thing has become, it's taken on a mob mentality. And what's really interesting about this is, again, now the situation's reversed, where it was a woman that's accused of preying on a boy becoming a young man. And all of a sudden now they're saying, wait a minute, Don't take out the pitchforks
Hold
just
up.
yet.
Wait a
Let's
minute.
go ahead and let the process play out.
Yeah.
Well, that's running contradictory to the way that these women have gone about this as time has gone along.
Yeah, well,
there's so much hypocrisy in Hollywood.
Their behavior does not support that.
Yes.
That opinion. That now, when the shoe's on the other foot, things change.
Absolutely.
Now, let me share another thought with you. All right, this kid Jimmy Bennett. I don't think that he was sexually assaulted.
I understand that.
I don't think that he went to a hotel room to meet a woman that he knew, and they fooled around.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that equals sexual assault. Now, he was under the age of consent,
right,
and I understand that, and I'm not dismissing that as an important part. But a 17-year-old boy knows what he's doing, Brandon. Okay,
17-year-old boys fantasize about being with Italian actresses named
exactly right.
Asia Argento.
That's right. You know, he hooked up with an Italian cougar.
Yeah.
Okay, and he left there high-fiving all of his friends. Trust me. All right. So I don't think that this equals sexual assault. I think that it was consensual. I don't hear any information or facts or opinions from either one of them that he was forced into doing anything,
right, or
even coerced.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've got to dismiss his claim there. I really do. As much as I don't support these hypocritical opinions from these women from the Me Too movement, I can't give his claim any support either. I just don't see him being assaulted or coerced or anything like that.
Well, and the bottom line, though, whether he was assaulted or not, she still committed a crime, though, in having sex with an underage child.
That's true.
Which is the biggest thing about this.
That's exactly right. So we're going to find out whether or not she gets charged.
Yes.
Okay, because technically she should be charged with a crime. Neither one of them are denying it. Well, she's denying.
Yes, she is.
She denied it at first, but now there's evidence that supports the fact that it did happen. I mean, she did have a text that claims that from her that describes it, that she said it felt weird. So she didn't just say, in other words, if there was a text that said that she had sex with him, all right, that's one thing. But when you have a text that says that she had sex with him and her opinion about it, meaning referring to her saying that it felt weird, now not only are you admitting to it, you are giving us your thoughts or critique or review opinion about how the whole thing went down. You're explaining how it made you feel. So the point that I'm making is that has got deeper implications of real activity that took place. So I want to see whether or not they charge this woman with a crime. Technically, they should.
232-1542. We would love to hear your thoughts on this conversation, as we are, again, just calling out the hypocrisy of those in Hollywood. And I think it's amazing. And I think what's unfortunate about this, though, is that there is, and we have seen this coming out of this movement, that there are legitimate wrongs that are being done in Hollywood where you have people in position of power carrying out abuse, sexual abuse of those that are below them. And what's unfortunate about this, because these are two women that were heavily involved in the Me Too movement from the beginning, is that it could kind of undercut some of the claims that do come from women that are legitimate claims against men that have abused them.
Now it's tainted.
It's tainted.
Okay, now it's tainted. And remember the old saying, if you live in glass houses, don't throw stones.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, now most people have some type of baggage in their past. All right? I mean, we're human beings. We make mistakes and things like that. However, if you have this type of baggage, and you participate in this type of behavior, the Me Too movement is not a good one for you to be involved with.
Well, and it's real quickly, how vicious the Me Too movement has been. I mean, it is basically what they have come out and said is believe all victims. And what they've done is it's convict people before they've gone into a court of law. And so when you judge others that harshly, you'd better not be guilty of the same thing.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Okay. That you might not. You can't even be accused of the same thing. You have to be so far removed from accusations like that, and otherwise you water down the message. Okay. Just to give you a little bit of background, a lady named Christina Hoff Summers, who's an American Enterprise Institute scholar, she tweeted the answer to male privilege is not female privilege.
Right.
And I thought that was very profound. She went on to say, the Me Too movement will fail if its leaders engage in hypocrisy, cronyism, and double standards. And so that is very reflective as well. So there are people that are calling these women out and saying, listen, you can't run your mouth. You can't participate in this. The hypocrisy is too obvious. You're denying it. Really what they're doing, this woman is behaving the same way that men all too often in her position do.
Yeah.
They deny it, they pay them off, and then they hope that the whole thing goes away.
232-1542. We head now to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, Shannon, just to play devil's advocate, let me ask you, where do you draw the line? Like you were saying, the 17-year-old was high-fiving his friends and everything. So where would you draw the line?
Well, that's a good question. And, of course, when I was saying that, I wasn't saying it was just my opinion describing the scenario. I don't have a...
I understand.
I get it. That's a very good question. I think that a 17-year-old boy knows what he's doing, unless there's some type of learning disability that he's dealing with, or if he is restricted in other ways or delayed in some ways. I don't know where the line is drawn. I don't know that it is a black and white line. I think that there is some gray area that exists, and that probably begins somewhere around 15 or 16 years old. What do you think?
Well, I'm a black and white guy. I don't believe in gray area. I mean, there's a letter of the law, and that's the letter of the law. So I just, when it comes to that, I just go by what the law says.
Not going to appreciate
the law
that.
does draw the line in this case.
It does.
And
it
that's
certainly
all
does.
we can go by.
Yep.
On Facebook, people are always, whenever something like this happens on the other side, they were always saying, these pedophiles ought to be castrated. He ought to be hung up by the neck after you castrate him, blah, blah, blah. And I always answer, hey, I agree with you 100% if they do the same thing to teachers that sleep with their students.
That's become so common, yeah. And traditionally, go ahead, I'm sorry.
How often is that? Just here in Louisiana, that's happened 5, 10, 15 times in the last 2, 3, 4 years, including a woman in New Orleans there that got off. That got out of jail.
Well, the court system certainly treats female teachers considerably different than male teachers that are in the same exact scenario. You take
exact scenario.
Exact same scenario.
You had a 40-year-old coach sleeping with a 15-year-old cheerleader, he'd be in jail.
That's right. You reverse it the other way around, and I'll tell you this, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I want to make this comment. Arguably, the girls are in a better position to make a decision, the young girls, I mean, than the boys are because they mature at a faster level.
But unfortunately, they're at more of a physical disadvantage.
Well, not if they consent.
Not if they consent.
Not if they consent. Okay, so there's a difference between sexual assault and molestation.
Right.
Okay, so I'm talking about a molestation. And, it is traditional that a young girl matures faster than a young boy. Therefore, arguably, she is in a better position to make a decision as to whether or not she wants to engage in this activity with an older man than a boy is. Okay, so the point is that, yes, there's definitely a double standard when these things occur and they make their way into the court system. You're absolutely right. A 40-year-old man with a 15 or 16-year-old girl, he's going straight to prison. A 40-year-old woman who's with a 15 or 16-year-old boy, you're not going to get the same outcome.
All right, guys, enjoying the show.
All right, thank you.
Great to have you.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the Cajun Harley hotline. Go ahead.
This is why I say, guys, go overseas. You're welcome. You're loved overseas. These women around here are no good.
Loved.
Come on now.
All right, 232-1542.
He needs to go there and stay there.
Yeah.
As long as, but he can still listen.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm coming in a little late on the topic, but the last thing I heard, the caller before the last, was talking about the teachers, the double standards, so to speak. And it is true, because if my husband hears of a 15, 16-year-old boy who had sex with his 30-something-year-old teacher, he's like, wow, I said, well, what would happen if your daughter? Oh, no. But I do know that this state does take, in some instances, I don't know about the New Orleans case, but I
unless you have connections.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, of a female teacher who her life has been destroyed because of what she did. And the young man's family has gone through press charges. I mean, she's gotten the big brunt of the law. She's lost her family. She's not allowed to see her kids. She's not allowed to be around kids of a certain age. She's lost her job, of course. She's gone through therapy and whatnot. So there are some cases where the double standard is.
Yeah, she has paid a price, but the question is, and I'm not familiar with that case, so I'm not pressing you for a specific answer, but hypothetically, did she pay the same price as a man would? Did she go to prison?
Now there you got me. No, she did not.
Okay, and you're right. She has paid. It sounds like she has paid a very severe price, and hopefully has set an example to deter other teachers from doing the same thing. But it still kind of brings us back around. It doesn't sound like she got the same punishment a man would.
Well, and the point and this is a point I want to make as well, and I wanted you to react to this as well, caller, is that in the minds of most people, it is more believable that a female would be a victim in the case of a female girl sleeping with a male teacher as opposed to the other way around because of what we've just talked about.
Yes.
Many people don't look at the male 17-year-old boy as a victim, but they do the 17-year-old girl, even if she was someone that was, it was consensual for her. She is still looked at much more sympathetically than is the male.
Well, in most cases, and hold on there, caller, don't hang up. In most cases, that is because, and you're right, because men, especially young boys, are filled with testosterone. Okay, so they are normally the pursuers. And so that is a good way to look at this. It's like, well, maybe that's the reason that the court system doesn't behave the same way, because boys are looking to engage in sexual encounters more aggressively than girls traditionally, simply because of biology.
Now, like I said, if I had a baby boy, he's not a baby, but if I had a 15-year-old boy, I would be very protective. But at the same time, I know what he's after and what he's going to want to learn and endeavor in. A 15-year-old girl, you need to take exception and talk to some of the moms out there. Girls are very aggressive nowadays.
Yes, that's true. You're right.
Aggressive.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't like that when I was in high school. Trust me.
That's what my husband says all the time. I mean, I've seen it when my daughter, who's 30 now, but when she was in high school, I was shocked at the conduct of some of these girls who are going after the young men nowadays. So I usually try to step aside and take the benefit of the doubt and go, okay, did this male teacher go after her, or did she possibly go after him for better grades or whatnot?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Lolita? Have you ever seen Lolita?
Yes, I have.
Well, that's what you're describing right there. Thanks for the call.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your thoughts here on Offsides. And as we jump back into the conversation, news coming out of Yahoo.com's Kevin Spacey, a second sex assault case is under review by Los Angeles prosecutors. I bring him up because he came up early on in the Me Too movement. He is now accused in another sexual assault case that was presented yesterday to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And it is more than 30 men have said they were victims of unwanted sexual advances by Kevin Spacey. It has been a massive fall down for him. As a matter of fact, he put out this movie over last weekend in like 8 theaters across the country.
Yeah.
It made like $140 or something.
Nobody's going.
Unbelievable.
I mean, this guy's done.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, he was an excellent actor. I used to watch, I've seen a lot of his movies and seen some other series that he was involved in, and he was very good. But he just needs to hang it up and go away for about 10 years.
232-1542. We continue on with the conversation. we opened it up by talking about how Asia Argento and Rose McGowan, about their conduct when it came to a 17-year-old boy that Argento is accused of sexually assaulting. And it turned into an interesting conversation about the differences between when you have a 17-year-old boy that sleeps with an adult or vice versa.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, there is a difference. And one of the most recent caller brought up a good point that young girls now are a lot more aggressive than they were in the past, in generations past. But I still think that there is a significant difference between a boy and a girl, simply because of the testosterone.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the Cajun Arley hotline. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to make a point that I'm going to tell myself. But the point I'd like to make is, first of all, when you're a teacher, and when you look at it in the teacher aspect, you know your students. You absolutely know how old they are. So with that said, you have no excuse. But
now, correct me if I'm wrong before we continue on. But even because in college, a teacher taught me this, that in college, the age really doesn't matter there in the sense of it being a teacher and a student. So even if that happens, that there's a chance that could be against the law as well.
Even if they're both of age of consent, yes. That's exactly right. The teacher-student relationship, there are some boundaries there that could be criminal. But go on, caller.
Well, and you're right. That's more of a professional thing. That's a moral, ethical, professional line that you don't cross.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, I remember whenever I was a teenager, and I was very, very well developed at a very young age, and drove my mother crazy because I always wanted to dress older than what I was.
Tell us about that.
Well, I would try to dress as half naked as I could everywhere I went.
Okay.
Because I liked the attention. And as I got older, because, I was really young and stupid, even though at the time I thought I knew everything about the world. As I got older, I realized that wasn't the kind of attention that it's like I wanted attention, but it's like you weren't really realizing that's the attention that you don't want. You rather attention... You want the attention because you're intelligent or you're doing good things, not because once the physical is gone, that's it, But something I did learn with my own children, and it kind of, I had to kind of eat crow because I did what my mama did. I was strict. I would call. I would make sure that my kids were where they said they were. I would check with the parents, and it still happened. I ended up finding out that one of my children took in a adult relationship with someone that was 8 years older. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know exactly who the person is. Second, my child knew what they were doing, and my child knew the rules of our house, and my child knew that they were partaking in something, and they actually portrayed themselves as older than what they were.
Okay.
So how can you, and this was not a teacher-student situation, this was just a person-person. How is that other person supposed to know when this, child is portraying themselves, and they very well fit the bill?
Let me tell you, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I know a young man. Now, we're going back a long ways now, all right? But I know a young man who was working at a local nightclub, and that's how I knew him. And he met a girl, and he was a doorman there. And he met a girl that was a patron at the nightclub, and he saw and checked her ID. Well, this is back when you used to be able to just go to the DMV. They didn't have digital photographs of you, all right? All you needed was a birth certificate and the proper documentation. Well, this girl went to the DMV with her older sister's birth certificate. So the driver's license that she had was a state-issued legal driver's license. It had her photograph on it, but guess what? It had her older sister's information on there. So this guy got to know this girl, started dating her. Turns out she was 16 years old. Cool. Guess what? He got arrested. Okay, so it doesn't matter. And he was saying, well, wait a minute. I know this girl is 18, 19 years old. I saw her ID. Yeah. And they said, sorry, that was a fake ID. And his position was, how was I supposed to know this even when I see the ID myself. So the point is that, yes, this does happen. And unfortunately, he still was charged.
Yep. And another situation, there was a teacher that he was a young teacher, and he was an attractive young man, and a lot of the young female students pursued him. And he ended up actually losing his job because he was accused. His girlfriend broke up with him. And one of my children, we were talking about it one day, and I'm like, well, what's going on? He says, well, it was all BS because they didn't get his attention the way they wanted. So a group of the young girls came together and said, well, since they're not going to get the attention they wanted from him, they made an accusation. And because of the accusation, he was not arrested. He was not charged with anything, but it still ruined because it was out there. It was put out there. So, there is a double standard. I know that, like the previous caller said, oh, well, young boy with an older teacher, oh, hey, good job. And then the vice versa. But I'm telling you, from my own personal experience, if an older guy approached me, I was all about it because I was old enough to look the part, but I was still mentally young enough that I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. It
makes a big. If we all think back into our high school years, and thanks for the call and sharing those good stories with us. If we all think back to our high school years, we knew people that we were friends with, and we knew people that were on very different levels of maturity. And so it's sometimes, I know one of our callers said, look, the law is the law. It's black and white. And he's absolutely right. But there's a big difference between some 17-year-olds and other 17-year-olds simply because of what they're exposed to, how they were raised, whether or not they have older siblings. That makes a big difference. Okay?
Absolutely.
I mean, I grew up with 3 older brothers. I knew everything. Okay? All right. Anyway, so LA Solar Film, great sponsor that we have here on Offsides. We're so grateful to have them. They are Acadiana's premier residential and commercial window tint service. And what we mean by commercial is that you may be an owner of an office building or any type of a business, a retail location. You see these retail locations that all the front of them are glass. Okay, the whole front of them are glass. Well, all those locations could benefit so well for having a tint.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, your business is typically the biggest investment you'll ever make, so you want to make sure that you take the right steps to protect it. Now, look, as a business owner, window tinting gives your customers privacy, which is what Shannon was alluding to just a minute ago. And because it helps you cut costs, well, that allows you to be able to modify your budget. So since you can be able to cut costs with the savings that you have from putting in the tinted film, well, you can be able to put that money towards other expenses that are needed to be paid off as you run your business.
Or buy more properties.
Exactly.
It's a smart investment. It's a good investment. And I would recommend it to every property owner on a commercial level as well as a residential. We normally talk about the residential aspect, but commercial buildings, they need this.
Well, commercial buildings, they need protection from storms too. It's great for them, especially to be able to save electricity in these businesses as well. Estimates are always free. Make sure you give Greg with LA Solar Film a call at 534-8039. 534-8039 to schedule your consultation. Don't forget to follow LA Solar Film on Facebook and online at lasolarfilm.com.
All right, everybody, you stay tuned. We're having a great conversation about sexual assault on teenagers and molestation on teenagers, and at what age it is, deemed acceptable to the court system as well as us ethically, emotionally. Stay tuned. Keep your calls coming in, 232-1542.
Welcome back into Offsides here on News Talk 96.5 KPAL. Hey, before we get back to the phone lines, got to tell you about our friends over at Red Royal House Buyers. Look, if you're facing any situation and selling your home fast would help you, then please give them a call. They can close on your house at your convenience.
That's right. Here are some reasons of why you should contact Red Royal House Buyers. They will buy your house as is with cash. No fees, no commission, and you won't have to make any repairs. Most importantly, they will close on your timeline to meet your needs.
Look, speak with one of their experienced professionals who can answer all of your questions that you may have about the process.
That's right. Visit them online at redroyalhousebuyers.com. That's redroyalhousebuyers.com. Follow them on Facebook or call them 337-509-0040. Red Royal House Buyers.
All right.
So getting back to our conversation, a lot of people calling in. We were talking about sexual allegations. Rose McGowan, Asia Argento. Asia Argento was apparently had intercourse with a young boy, Jimmy Bennett. He was 17. She was 37. She ended up paying him off $380,000, but it still leaked out. Rose McGowan then went to her defense, please asking people to be gentle with her. I don't get that. But nevertheless,
basically
here
put
we
away
are.
the pitchforks.
Put away the pitchforks, but pull them out when it's a man.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about that, about how that relationship, how an older man and a younger woman versus a older woman and a younger man, how that is perceived so differently, especially when there's charges and many times teacher-student relationships, and how the court system treats them so very differently.
232-1542. We'd love to hear what you think. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, let us not forget, Asia Argento is the Miss Me Too movement leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's the one screaming the loudest. So, again, hypocrisy on the left. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but let's say back in the 70s, I was in high school.
All right.
We had a senior who was 17 years old who was dating a teacher. We all knew about it, and he was our hero. You know, things like this happen, but to the point of kids today, they're being influenced by music. Mm-hmm. Probably 15 years ago, I was watching either on 60 Minutes or one of these Sunday morning programs. They were talking about how auditoriums are built, and the young people are allowed into the place. They play music, and they're hooked up to diodes, which track their emotional reactions. If a sexual arousal occurs, they know that this will be a number one hit. Again, this is 15 years ago. Okay. So they've been playing all this and collecting data. You know, they know how the mind works, and all this is not to say mind control, but, you know, they know how to self-point.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I tell you, along with that, the other strong influence, of course, is social media, smartphones, Snapchat, and, you know, the access to pornography now is so easy for young people. It's free. It's on the internet. They can watch anything they want, anytime they want, right there on their phone. You know, now, porn has always been around, but not like it is now. You know, when my parents were growing up, my father or my older brothers even, there was only magazines. You know, then the next generation was videotape. Okay, and now then that turned into CDs and DVDs. Now it is so readily available on the internet, and as I mentioned before, free, 100% free. This influences the young mind and the young body, and it definitely encourages. Now, a lot of those, and I'll tell you, a lot of those, a lot of that footage, if you will, is younger and older couples. So, I mean, we all have heard the term cougar, and that's very popular.
Yeah, and there's another call letter, and it's MILF or something like that.
Yeah, MILF.
Again, yeah, you know, and like you were talking about, it's free over the cell phones. You know, how many, and let's talk about free cell phones that have been given out by our previous predecessor president. You know, I believe more porn has been viewed over these free cell phones than jobs have been obtained. You know?
Yeah, well, that kind of goes without saying, free or paid cell phones. Yeah, thanks for the call.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your thoughts as we wrap up the 4 o'clock hour. But before we do, actually, I need to make sure we let people know. Got a couple of crashes on I-10 eastbound. One of them is at Whiskey Bay, and one of them is at the foot of the Baton Rouge side of the bridge. So again, I-10 eastbound, one at Whiskey Bay, one of them is at the foot of the Baton Rouge side of the bridge.
Welcome back to Offsides, everybody. Shannon Wilkerson, Brandon Comeaux, 232-1542, the Cajun Harley Hotline. As always, we invite your phone calls, opinions, questions, comments, what we're talking about today is a situation that has taken place with a lady named Asia Argento and her counterpart, in some ways, Rose McGowan. They were both heavily involved in the Me Too movement. Well, Asia Argento was accused of sexual assault with a young boy, Jimmy Bennett, who was 17 years old at the time. She was 37, and he claims that she invited him to her hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton, and he had a family member bring him there. She asked the family member to leave, and then she gave him alcohol, and then she performed a sex act on him, and then the two of them had intercourse. Then apparently he tried to get some communication with her with text messaging. There's no evidence as to whether or not she replied to them, but he was texting her that he loved her and such, and also sent her nude text messages with pictures of him nude. She originally denied the claim. However, TMZ uncovered some text messages that she sent to a third party saying that she did, in fact, have sex with him and that it felt weird. She eventually settled with him for $380,000. She claims that her ex-boyfriend, now deceased, Anthony Bourdain, basically executed and negotiated that deal, encouraging her to settle, just make the whole thing go away.
Yeah, and so a lot of people that obviously are mourning the death of Anthony Bourdain and really followed his career are upset because they feel like she is kind of passing the buck on to him. And so I think, again, one of the most profound statements, and you mentioned it earlier, was made from a woman named Christina Hoff Sommers, who's an American Enterprise Institute scholar and critic of the modern feminist movement, where she said the answer to male privilege is not female privilege. The answer is basic fairness for all. And the Me Too movement, by its leaders right now, is making itself look like they only favor women who are perceived as victims and not men.
Yeah. I mean, it's hypocrisy, and they are really damaging their identity with the Me Too movement.
Their credibility.
Their credibility, that's exactly right. And so we'll see how this whole thing plays out.
232-1542, we head back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, is that me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi, guys. I've got about 8 years' experience being a teenage boy, and it's been several years ago, but in my memory...
How could you get 8 years? I got to stop you, buddy.
I know.
I got to stop you, okay? I mean, did they hold you back or something?
Are you counting 11 and 12 years old?
For 8 years.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, or 7, but...
7,
yeah, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, it would have been darn near impossible for a woman to have sexually abused me during those years. I mean, it would have been just almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to say anymore.
No, that's okay. I think that the only time that I understand what you're saying. And I think that in many cases, the only time that sexual assault can occur on a teenage boy is if he is delayed, if he is disabled, if he's got some type of an affliction that does not allow him the ability to understand what's going on, or if there's some type of blackmail that's going on, or some type of a power struggle. Like recently, we did a big thing on the Catholic Church.
Right.
Okay, and so I know that those scenarios were men on boy, male on male assault. Yeah. Okay, but it's just an example. A woman that is that has some type of control or some type of power could, in fact, commit this crime. But I see what you're saying. Good point. Thanks for the call.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
There's a big difference in this. That 17-year-old boy is a child. He's not a man.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I'm understanding about this, he was 17 by like a week. He just turned from 16 to 17.
Okay.
And there's an old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Uh-huh.
So why do women think that they should be treated differently? Sexual abuse for a man or a woman should be treated exactly the same.
You're absolutely right. I think that they have that opinion because the court system acts in that same way. The court system doesn't treat them the same way. So they don't have the same. They think that they can get away with it. They think that the rules don't apply to them. And I don't blame them for having that opinion because that's what the court system does.
And I think it's also important to point out as well that, like you've talked about, Shannon, with the maturity levels are different for everyone. Just because a boy physically thinks he can handle the relationship doesn't mean that mentally he can handle that relationship, especially when you're talking about 15, 16, 17-year-old boys. And that's obviously where the protection comes in when you're talking about female adults and you're talking about male children.
Yeah. I mean, some of these, that's exactly, because some are more sensitive than others. Thank you.
This woman's old enough to be his mother.
Yeah?
Yeah, easily.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Yeah, you made the point that that a 17 or 18-year-old boy or even maybe a little younger cannot physically be assaulted. And I think you said that they may even want to be part of the situation. But I was in the Army for 24 years, and I've seen young men come, leave their home and come into a situation that they think they can handle. Yeah. And I'm talking guys who are even up to the age of 22, 23 years old. Mm-hmm. They ain't got no clue.
You talking about a situation with them and a woman?
Well, that too.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, when the caller was saying that he didn't think that a teenage boy could be sexually assaulted, he was referring to by a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I am in agreement. Okay. I'm in disagreement. I don't think. I think physically that a kid may not be able to be assaulted, but mentally, and I mean, I've seen guys show up and marry a girl because they think that they're in love with them. They're like 20 years old. They don't have no clue. Right. And 6 months later, their bank account's cleaned out and they're divorced.
Yeah.
And so physically they may not be able to be assaulted, but they don't know what's going on. And they may not know what's going on until they're about 25 years old. I mean, you can ask almost anybody on a construction site in the military.
Oh, right. I didn't know what was going on until I was 40. Okay.
Thank you, caller.
I'm not joking.
All right, we got to leave it there. We got the 5 o'clock hour breathing down our necks. We've got look at national news from Fox. Also, we got weather and traffic as well. Keep it tuned here to News Talk 96.5 KPL. You're listening to Offsides.
About an incident that took place in Terrytown at a school called Christ the King. Mm-hmm. This is a middle school, and it is a Catholic school run by the archdiocese. And what happened there was a young black girl was sent home because her hair violated the dress code. And this has brought up I don't want to call it a big controversy, but it's turning into a pretty big controversy.
It's gained a lot of steam on social media.
That's exactly right, because there are many claims that are stating that the dress code discriminates.
Right.
Just to give our callers a description, the girl had I don't want to call them dreadlocks, but they were like a weave. Mm-hmm. All right, and she was wearing it up in a bun on top of her head, and it violated the code. Yeah. Now the dress code at Christ the King states, and I'll read it here: boys and girls. This is to boys and girls. Excuse me. Only the student's natural hair is permitted. Extensions, wigs, hair pieces of any kind are not allowed. And so that is what the argument is, that there are a lot of people saying that discriminates against black girls because they get a lot of weaves. Mm-hmm. Now, what I found interesting was Teen Vogue, the magazine Teen Vogue, just in the last few years did a study on this. And they have found that, or their results were that black girls were disproportionately enforced. These rules are disproportionately enforced against black girls.
Right.
Now, most of that is because of what I just described, because they get weaves. Mm-hmm. Most of the enforcement problems, or the violations rather, are because of hair. And so the black girls get the weaves in their hair, and that violates the dress code. And so therefore, there are a lot more violations that are issued against black girls as opposed to white girls. Yeah. And so thus the argument that a lot of black people think that they're being discriminated against.
Well, and if you watch the video at our website, kpel965.com, you'll see on the video the poor girl is heartbroken, or she's embarrassed, I should say, and her parents are in there, and they are fussing with the administrators, and they're putting accusations out there, and I get that they're very upset. And when I look at this, I feel bad for her because there's nothing wrong with her hairstyle. Absolutely. I mean, it's a hairstyle. And so as it goes along, you hear the accusations of racism. You're seeing now the NAACP is involved. The Baton Rouge NAACP Baton Rouge president is involved. I've seen numerous emails from organizations that advocate for the rights of African Americans have come out and said that this is discrimination, that this is just another instance that people are trying to keep blacks from being able to go to private schools. Right. But here's the thing too, is that the family filed a discrimination suit against Jefferson Parish Middle School in response. But if you really read into this, it is really hard to win one of those kind of lawsuits against private schools because private school students, quoting Dane Cialino, who's a law professor at Loyola Constitutional Law, says, look, quote, private school students certainly don't have a constitutional right to expression at a private institution.
It's a completely different set of rules and regulations within the school and legally within the court system. As I was mentioning before, yes, it's true that these black girls do get more violations against them for dress code. In fact, they are almost 18% more likely to be suspended for dress code violations than white girls. Yeah. Now, one of the studies indicated that other enforcements are more strict on black girls because they are perceived to be older. Okay, so some of these studies concluded that administration and teachers have this perception that black girls of the same age of white girls are at a higher level of maturity, therefore expected to raise or be risen to a higher standard. And so that is an issue as well. It still really does come down, Brandon, to the fact that there were rules. The parents were given the rules. I saw the video myself. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the girl's hair. It looked fine to me. Right. But it did violate the rules. Okay. She was wearing it very neatly. And like I said, I didn't see anything wrong with it. However, as I mentioned before, the rules clearly state they cannot have a weave. Yeah. Okay. The hair has to be your own. And so it's kind of one of those things, there is a perception there that is discriminating against black girls. And I think that conclusion, or at least the concluded opinion, is because black girls are the ones that get weaves. Absolutely. Okay, very few white girls will get weaves. They also can't wear their hair in cornrows. Yeah. Okay, now that is a black girl and a white girl thing. Either one of them can do it. But I think that this is a problem for the black community and the black girls, especially because they all have weaves. Okay, I know that is generalized. Many of them have weaves. All right. And I also know through black female friends of mine that their hair is a big challenge. Yeah. Okay. Especially in the teenage years when they're more sensitive. They're going through puberty and their bodies are changing and they're more emotional and they're less secure. Okay. Think about when you were a teenager. Okay. And if you've got issues with your hair and the answer is to get weaves, but then you get sent home for the weaves, I mean, it's a no-win scenario. It really is. And I mean, there are hair codes that are put into place in workforces as well. I mean, at my first job, I could not have facial hair. And it was something that I hated, but you know what? I wanted to work there, so I didn't have any facial hair. But when it comes to this situation like a weave, okay, which you will obviously see black women have when they're in the workforce, it makes me wonder, is this a rule that needs to be changed? There are many questions that come out of this for me, and one of those questions is, does this private school and maybe others need to update their list of rules? Because when you have a situation like what we saw on the video with the girl, yes, they were warned ahead of time, and there's no working your way around that. Yeah. Okay, if you know the rules ahead of time, you got to abide by them. But is it time for that rule to be modified
to, I guess, reflect culture nowadays.
Well, I think that it's something that needs to at least be considered, especially if they start seeing, and they have been seeing, an increase in number of the black students that are going to these Catholic schools.
Right.
Okay, more affluent families are sending their children to these schools. I don't think it was as big of an issue 20 or 30 years ago because they didn't have any black students.
That's what I'm saying. Something tells me these rules were made before black students were going to
didn't have
Christ
any
the
blacks.
King.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Also, weaves weren't a big thing back then. Okay, when I was in high school, girls didn't have, nobody knew what a weave was. Didn't exist. Okay, it wasn't out there. It was either your hair or a wig.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Well, now they got weaves, and all the black girls have the weaves, and the black girls are in high school, they can't have them.
And I'll say this, because the thing about this that's unfortunate is you've got the accusations of racism going full-fledged. And one of those that was put out there was that these kinds of schools, as a matter of fact, I'll read this statement that came from NAACP Baton Rouge President Michael McClanahan, who's calling for a boycott of the school. He says, quote, "Now you have affluent black families wanting to go to these private schools, and these private schools really do not want them there, as you can see." Well, first off, that's a huge blanket.
Yeah.
That is a huge blanket. Now, if you want to make that accusation against Christ the King school, okay, but that is a massively blanket statement. That is just not true.
I can't support that at all. No, I can't support that at all. I don't think that this stems from them not wanting black students in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that if that were true, they'd be able to find a better way to do it, as opposed to just enforcing a different dress code or a hair code, if you will.
232-1542. We head to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
What's happening, man?
Hey, you tell me.
Oh, dude. Okay, so what we have here is not an issue about the hair and the dress code. It's a private school. There's rules. In the rules, black and white print, it says you can't have this hairstyle.
Yeah.
Now, this family is paying a tuition to go to this school.
Likely a very high tuition.
Exactly. The real issue of this isn't the hair. It's the fact that we're teaching our youth, if you complain and you scream and you kick and you fight and you cause a big enough scene, you'll get your way.
And I can't disagree with that at all.
And it's because it happens all the time. Okay, how many times do we see protests and people raising hell about things that they don't like, and administration at schools, universities, even they break and they give them their way because time and pressure just wears them down.
Well, and I agree. And if you look at the video again, accusations are put out there. The way that the people that were filming it and those around her handled it, what did you think you were going to get accomplished by verbally attacking the people that were there, in a sense of saying, I'm not going to say verbally attacking, I'm going to say making accusations as the thing was going along, that they didn't care, that they just, all of the things you could see on the video yourself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. They basically were pitching a fit about it instead of, you didn't see them trying to work it out with the school administrators.
Well, they knew as the caller said, they knew the rules on the front end.
Right.
They wanted their child to go there. I mean, I can see the argument, or at least the presentation, that some of these rules should be revisited. Okay, because they were written at a time, as we mentioned before, when there wasn't hardly any, if any, black students going to these schools.
Right.
Okay. Also, weaves didn't exist. Okay. Now they do have these students, and guess what? Weaves do exist. And I think that it's reasonable for these schools to revisit those rules. However, this isn't the way you do it.
No,
okay.
Absolutely.
You knew the rules. You wanted your child to go there. You cut the check for tuition. You knew that going in, you set her up for failure by letting her go to school that way in the first place.
Exactly.
Exactly. You send the child to that school and not a public school because you want the child to have a strong sense of responsibility, of commitment, of understanding what is acceptable and what is not only in a school place, but to develop the child to know what's acceptable in the workplace.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, if you're, the audio and the video is not matching up with this situation, man. It's like someone's trying to catch a freebie, trying to catch a check, trying to cause a scene. This is not the kind of message we need to be sending these young, impressionable minds, that if you kick and scream loud enough and you call someone, the right kind of name to pressure them, you'll get your way. And we're seeing that on the national level as well.
Thank you, caller.
All right.
Excellent point. We appreciate it. We got to go on now.
Great first call to open up our topic. All right. Going to go ahead and take this break. When we come back, more of your calls. But first, your J&J Exterminating Pest of the Day.
All right, that means Cajun Harley-Davidson.
Yes, absolutely. Look, Cajun Harley-Davidson now has a new offer called Warranty Forever. Warranty Forever provides a lifetime limited powertrain warranty. This warranty is included in every new and pre-owned bike under 5 years old, and it's at no additional cost to the buyer.
That's right. And in addition to that, through the remainder of this month, if you buy a new 2018 model or any pre-owned bike less than 5 years old, you receive a free 2-year maintenance program. That includes 1, 5, 10, 15, and 1,000-mile services. Every time you bring your bike in for a service, you get a free detail, or you get a free battery if you need one in that time period. Also, if you live within 30 miles, Cajun Harley-Davidson will pick up and deliver your bike, and you get priority scheduling. Great time to buy a motorcycle.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about a story that is stirring up some controversy to the east of us, down in the New Orleans area, as a girl at Christ the King Middle School, it's a private school, was sent home because her hair did not match up with the dress code. And again, reminding you of the dress code in the student handbook, it says, quote, boys and girls, only the student's natural hair is permitted. Extensions, wigs, hair pieces of any kind are not allowed. Her hair obviously violated that standard, so she was sent home, and now you have many people calling racism.
Yeah, well, I just got a text message from one of our listeners in New Orleans, as a matter of fact, that informed me that the parents had been notified repeatedly.
Yeah.
And that this was a deliberate act of defiance. And so I mentioned before, it's like the parents kind of set the kid up for failure, in my opinion. They knew the rules. They wanted the kid to go to school there. They cut the check. They paid the tuition. Now they're raising hell about the way that the school is run.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's the right order of business. I do think that you made a good point that maybe it's time for some of these private schools, to revisit some of these rules and regulations, because they very well could be outdated. But nevertheless, the rule is in place, and it needs to be enforced equally. Also, this was not the only student that the rule was enforced against. The school made it a point to make that clear, that there were other students that were sent home for similar or not the same or the same violations.
Yeah, and going back to what you're saying, there is a much better way of going about trying to get your message to point, trying to get a rule changed, than just pitching a fit. Yeah. So the caller at the beginning was very spot on when he mentioned that about, unfortunately, we've taught our kids a lot of times that if you can pitch a fit loud enough, scream loud enough, that you'll get your way. All right, 232-1542. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Afternoon, guys.
Hey.
Hey, I've got a few points on this. I read, I didn't watch the video, but what I've read was that she had this hairstyle for 2 years at the same school.
Right.
So if that's true, then why are they doing this now and not 2 years prior?
That's a good question. That's the first I've heard of that. As I mentioned before, one of our listeners just text messaged me and they are listeners from New Orleans, and they were explaining that the parents had been warned about this repeatedly, and that they were just being defiant. But if the student was allowed to have this hair for a 2-year period, and then now they just decide that it's time for them to start enforcing it, I think that that's a big mistake.
Yeah, that's wrong. And it was just one article I read, and I believe that was the mother that stated that. Another thing is, if nothing was wrong with her hair. I mean, I saw the picture. It looked presentable. It looked real nice. How did they know it was a weave, if it was, in fact, a weave? And another thing is, so the rules clearly state it must be the student's hair.
Yes.
So if a female student or even a male student has cancer or a condition that they lose their hair and they wear a wig, will they send them home as well?
I doubt it. You make a good point, but I think that in cases like that, and I can't speak on behalf of the school, but I think that in cases like that they would be encouraged to make some exceptions. Now, you mentioned, how did they know it was a weave? You can, you don't have to be a very well-trained eye to determine whether or not it's a weave when you get up close.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't have a trained eye then.
Yeah, well,
really
you don't need a well-trained. That's what I'm saying. You don't need a well-trained eye, and some of these weaves, they're very, very long. These kids have to be growing their hair since birth to have hair that long.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm with you guys. It looked presentable, and I didn't see anything wrong with it. To me, it looked like just the small curls in her hair, and it was the way it was put up. It looked very nice. Now, do the parents have an ulterior motive? They very well could. Who knows? But, I'm not there. We're not there. But
yeah. All right, man.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey.
Well, I just wanted to say I actually have a story from that personal experience. My dad was a lieutenant commander in the Navy. Well, we moved around a lot, and I'm a white male, and all military families, as you probably know, are basically kind of the same. There isn't a lot of race boundaries or differences between the way we're all raised. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. It was that. And I met a very beautiful black girl, when I was in 8th grade. And me and her went out, and her dad was very strict on her about how she dressed and all this other stuff, and refused to let her have any of the hair extensions and any of the weaves and that type of stuff. Well, I remember one time when she was in the 9th grade, and she came to me, she was crying and crying and crying. Well, what had happened is, also in the military, you better make honor roll. If not, I mean, that's your butt. Let's just put it that way. And her grades started to slip, and she was crying. And come to find out, because, we were dating, what it was is that this is the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is it takes a black girl so much longer to straighten their hair.
Oh, yeah.
To get their stuff together the night before when they could be doing homework. And if this is Christ the King and all that, it should be based on Christ, and it should be based on their grades and that type of stuff. And finally, he relented and was let her actually, have, a weave, but it was modest. It looked nice, like the one that they had, that, you're talking about and stuff too. But, what's the most important thing? Is it going to be discovering Christ and learning, and actually getting your grades up? Or is it going to be spending 5 hours every night to make sure your hair was straight?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, I agree with you there. Black women, females of any age, they have some real challenges with their hair. And that is not the same challenges that white girls have, okay? And you're right, They can spend hours working on their hair, and they can't, especially in these schools, they can't just put a hat on either.
Yep.
All right, man,
well,
thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
So my son goes to private school, and I understand a girl's hair look nice, but to be honest, that's really besides the point. The point is you go to private school, we are required to sign a student handbook at the beginning of the school year. We know what the rules are. We are given the handbook, and I'm sure it's the same at just about every school. So I'm sure the parents signed a handbook agreeing to the rules. Yeah. So my son this week got called out for his hair because the rule is it cannot touch his eyebrows, his ears, or his collar. Well, it grows fast. It was touching his eyebrows, ears, and collar. He got called out. We have until the weekend to get it cut, or he is going to get a dress code violation. That's just the rules. We chose that school. We chose to follow the rules. He gets called out. I have to obey. That is the rules of the school. And all you're teaching this kid, like the first caller said, is to complain and moan, and I don't have to follow the rules anymore.
Listen, caller, your story reminds me, I had older brothers that went to Jesuit high school, and I remember them saying that the brothers and the teachers there would walk around with an index card, okay? And what they would do is, because your hair couldn't touch your collar, and so what they would do to measure, to illustrate whether or not the hair was short enough, they would put that index card along the top of their collar, and if the hair touched the index card, they had a violation. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, they agreed to the terms of the rules and regulations of the schools. And listen, that's why you see in many ways, not in every way, that's why you see a lot of children and graduates of Catholic and private schools excel at a higher level educationally, and it's because they learn the rules, and those rules are strictly enforced.
Well, let me ask you this, Mel. Was your son sent home for the day, or like you said, he's just been kind of given till the weekend to get it addressed until he gets punished.
The rule he was not sent home. The rule and I know every school has different rules.
Yeah.
The rule at his school is that they are given a warning and they have until the weekend to get it cut.
Right.
If he shows back up on Monday, then he's in trouble.
Yeah.
So it gives us enough time to get him to a barbershop and get it cut.
Yeah, it's pretty lenient because at Christ the King, they sent her home that day, so she didn't get that grace period, if you will. But like you said, every private
she may have been
different.
warned.
She may.
We don't know that. They don't say that. None of the information that we have read through so far with this story indicate whether or not she had received a private warning. Now, as I mentioned before, I was text messaged that the parents had received multiple warnings and that they were just being defiant.
Right. And look, at my job, we can where I work, you cannot have visible tattoos. If you have a tattoo that's visible, you either don't work there or you better cover it up in some kind of way or they won't even hire you.
Yeah.
So you have rules to follow. That's just the nature of the world and society that we live in. You can't just cry and moan and say, "Okay, I'm not following the rules." Too bad.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a nephew. He just graduated from LSU last year and he wanted to join the Marines. He had visible tattoos. They told him no. And so he ended up joining the Army because they don't have the same restrictions. And so he just had a tattoo on his arm, on his forearm, and they said, you got to get that thing taken off or you can't join the Marines.
All right, thank
you for the call.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Hey.
I'm going to take the side of the school, kind of. First off, I think that the rule is silly, but this is a Catholic school. I'm not Catholic, and I could be wrong, but I think this probably has to do with vanity, and the Catholic school frowns on vanity. We've talked about how well private schools excel in later life, so they're obviously doing something wrong with the anti-vanity thing, and that's probably where the rule stems from. I'd like to know if they have that same rule regarding makeup, and I think then that would just kind of prove that it's a vanity thing.
I don't know. I don't know if they have the rule about. Now, I did see a part of the rule. The part that applies to the hair was posted online, but I didn't read nor did I download the entire handbook.
Well,
but good question. I will tell you this. I had a cousin and a niece both teach at Chappelle High School in Kenner, and that is a all-female Catholic high school. And I know that they don't have makeup restrictions. Now, they may have excessive makeup restrictions, and that could be very subjective.
Yeah, and what they're saying, and again, not saying that I agree with what they're saying, but what the parents are saying is that when they had the meet and greet, which is like orientation, it was never brought to the attention of them or to their daughter that she needed to get her hair fixed. But again, there's the rule book where it states it, and you have to follow the rule book, and or unfortunately, a situation like that could happen. So, all right, well, thank you, caller. We are going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your thoughts here on Offsides.
Welcome back to Offsides, everybody. Shannon Wilkerson, Brandon Comeaux, 232-1542, the Cajun Harley Hotline. We invite your phone calls. But first, let's talk a minute about our friends over at LA Solar Film. Now, LA Solar Film, being Acadiana's premier residential and commercial window tint service, can lower your utility bills. It's something you don't think about when you own a home or a retail or commercial business location. When people mention window tinting, the first thing we automatically think of is a car.
Yes.
Okay, because you see cars and they get their windows tinted. It makes the car cooler and makes it cool looking. Okay, well, same thing with your house, your commercial location. You can get your windows tinted at your home or at your business location, and you will see an effect on your utility bill because your air conditioner isn't working as hard.
Yes, look, UV rays cost more money than the film in the long run. So do yourself a favor and get this film from LA Solar Film. Look, they also want you to know that, especially when it comes to businesses, financing is available for those larger jobs, interest-free. Credit check is necessary. Look, this is something that whether you're a business owner or whether you're a homeowner, you want to be able to put because it's going to save you money in the long run. And it's going to not only do that with your utility bills, it's going to lower those utility bills over time. It's also going to go ahead and provide you with tons of security, whether it's from natural disasters or whether it's from just, people that are trying to look into your home.
Yeah, it's a smart investment. So get an estimate. The estimates are always free. Give Greg a call at LA Solar Film, 534-888-8255. 800-835-8039. So getting back to what we're talking about a black student in Terrytown who was sent home because she had hair that violated the school's rules and regulations. This is a Catholic school called Christ the King, and they made the rules available to the parents. The parents and the children that go there all are required to agree to the rules. However, this girl was sent home, and the parents and now the NAACP think that the rules are racist because the way that they are written and the way that they are enforced, they are focused more on the black female student than the white female, mainly because the black girls get weaves.
Yeah.
Okay. And the school's rules clearly dictate that your hair must be your own.
Yeah, and look, a law expert says this lawsuit is likely to face an uphill battle, basically because it has to be proven that it's a race-based policy, and it's hard to do that. And so this is something that is causing a lot of controversy, causing a lot of noise. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere. If anything, they might get some of the schools, if not just this school, to revisit their rules. Because like we were mentioning before, some of these rules might be very outdated. Mm-hmm. They were written before they had black students. I mean, listen, when I went to high school, there was hardly any black students in private or Catholic schools.
Right.
One or two. That's not an exaggeration. Mm-hmm. Well, now, now you've got these affluent black families in Orleans Parish as well as other places, and they want their children to get what they expect to be a better education through through the private school system. And now but the rules seem to be very outdated. So I don't think anything's going to come of it either. I think the student is going to have to abide by the rules, and maybe the school will then revisit the regulations.
232-1542. We head back to the Cajun Harley Hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Well. Sounds like some of this privilege going on here, guys. I tell you what, I was a product of Louisiana public schooling, thank you very much, and I wish I would have had the very privilege to go to a private school and have to follow some rules that apply to me. Because I tell you what, in the real world, they apply, and nobody gives a rat's you-know-what if you don't like them. And this sounds like it's we're wanting a little black privilege for our hair, fashions. I mean, where's the education in this? Where's the betterment of our minds? Where do we have to have a weave? Is this necessary in today's culture?
Well, I'll tell you.
No idea. I mean,
well, I tell you, black females do have a lot of problems with their hair, and it is beneficial to them and helpful to them aesthetically and time management wise for them to have these weaves. Do they have to have it? No, but I don't have a problem with them having it. All right, I think that what would be reasonable is if the school revisited their policy and said, look, if you're going to have a weave, it needs to be kept maybe like the way this girl was keeping it. Okay, because it was very neat. You know what I mean? It wasn't like she didn't look like a Rastafarian with dreadlocks draping down her shoulders.
No.
Okay.
It was a common look.
It was a very common look. But listen, when it comes down to it, those are the rules. They agreed to them until they change the rules. If you don't like it, don't go to school there.
And that's the thing thank you, caller, is that I wish that instead of trying to make a fuss about this and trying to put out a case that is most likely not going to be able to be won, and basically allowing those racism accusations to fester, I wish that they would come up with a better way of trying to work with the school. Now, if the school wants to stay with their rules and stay staunchly with it, then hey, you have the option of trying to be able to send your child somewhere else. You obviously have the money, or your child has the intelligence to be able to go to another school.
You go to a private school and likely not have the same hair problem.
Exactly, but to be able to just go and just make a fuss about it when the rules have already been set, it's going to be hard to try to prove your case against that private school.
Yeah. Okay, I just got another text message from our New Orleans listener that says reports indicate that this is a new rule at the school.
Oh.
Okay, so this is newly implemented rule, and so you and I stand corrected, okay, because we were under the assumption that this was a rule that is outdated.
Right.
It's brand new.
Now again though, they still, this is what the school says. The school says that the policy was communicated to all parents during the summer and again before the first day of school.
Yes.
So the rule was still established before the day that it came into this conflict.
I don't mean new like today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not an outdated old rule.
Right.
It's a reasonably new rule, and all the parents and students were informed of it.
Yeah. All right, we go back to the Cajun Harley hotline. All right, caller, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey.
So I don't see how you can make this out to be a racist rule, because rules themselves, it's really hard for them to be racist unless, race is explicitly mentioned, because it comes down to the enforcement. If they equally enforce this with the white kids as they do the black kids, this isn't a racist rule, because, maybe it's a little stereotypical that the black girls like to wear weave, but from my experience, the white girls love their hair extensions. And
that's a good point about the hair extensions.
Yes.
So, if the teachers are only calling out the black students, then yeah, there's a problem, but that's not with the rule itself, it's with the teachers. So I think that a lot of these people are just trying to make themselves out to be the victims so they can try to get a leg up in the world. And we're in this kind of gotcha culture where if they can find something that's racist, or if they can find anything and warp it to their advantage, try to get their way, people are going to do that. And I think that's what they're trying to do here.
Okay, man. Good
All
call.
right.
Thank you.
All right, 232-1542. We're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your calls as we wrap up this hour and this edition of Offsides.
We're wrapping up at work, but they're just getting started. Offsides with Brandon Comeaux and Shannon Wilkerson. Join the show by calling 232-1542.
All right, we're back on right now. Let me clarify something. We've been talking about those rules at the school. Okay, it is not the school's rule. I was just clarified. I was just got some information that clarified this. This is the archdiocese rules. Okay, so the archdiocese sets the rules for all of the Catholic schools.
Right.
So this school actually did not set the rule. This is set by the archdiocese. So that's something that needs to be considered, that this is not it is a rule that is enforced by the school, and it is a rule that is applied at the school, but the school itself did not create this rule. The rule is created by the archdiocese.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. Because when talking to whoever's in charge, the archdiocese has been the one that has come out and defended its hair policy. So you're absolutely right. All right, 232-1542. Let's head on over to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'd really be interested to read the entire policy and find out if it's just to deal with hair or if it's an overall appearance, because I know some parochial schools do have policies against nail polish, nail extensions, stuff like fake nails. But also I would be interested to find out if that policy will also extend to, unfortunately, children that have cancer that wear wigs because they've lost their hair.
Yeah, a previous caller brought that up. And I would, of course, I don't know this, but I would venture to say that they would make exceptions. At least I would hope that they would.
Yeah.
I don't. That would just downright be cruel. If you've got a student, a young person, a child that has cancer, and through chemotherapy they've lost their hair, and the archdiocese says, "Sorry, you can't wear a wig." Now we got a real problem.
I agree, and I think that would be horrible. But it also, I think that itself would lend to whether or not they're picking on certain things. If it's just hair extensions or if it's specifically ethnic hair extensions, I think how it's worded is going to have a lot of determination on how far they'll be able to go with that lawsuit.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for the call.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, guys. Hey. I read about this on three different news sources. And for you guys, just think about this. One of the sources, which was the Business Insider, basically said that the school offered the student's family an opportunity to comply with the uniform and dress policy, and the family chose to withdraw the student. So the student was not suspended or expelled. So
No, they
a bit
weren't.
more information.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were sent home for the day. They weren't.
That's
they weren't-
right.
As a matter of fact, one story had to make a correction because they put that the girl was expelled. But she
Expelled. I
wasn't.
saw that. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. No,
Thank you, caller.
the student was just sent home.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. One of the things you got to consider, the parents are the one involved in this thing because they signed a contract. The contract said they would follow by the rules. So contract law would prevail, in my opinion. But again, my opinion, and $1 gets you a cup of coffee most places.
No, not on this show, man. Your opinion's very valuable.
All right, thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hey.
Very awesome topic that y'all got today. I'm glad I got a chance to chime in. I am African American.
Yes,
I am the product of parochial schools, as are my two children, are both graduates of a private Christian academy and a Catholic school. While in
Wait, we're losing.
Yeah, we're losing.
Okay,
you,
go
caller.
ahead. What were you saying?
Okay, I mean, we abided by all the regulations the school set forth. When my son started getting a little peach fuzz on his face, the policy of the school was no facial hair. Okay? All right. With that said, he, just like his father, started shaving and became clean shaven. My daughter abided by all the rules, too. I think where the compromise needs to come in, is that with little African-American girls, the fixing of the hair can be difficult at times, and that's why some of the parents put the extensions in their hair to aid them in fixing the hair. And I just think it's all about compromise. No lawsuits. Compromise. Because like y'all said earlier, with a wig for a child with that perhaps might have cancer,
right?
Be settled with the diocese if they could just sit down together, emotions taken away, and let's talk about it. And I'm pretty sure the archdiocese would see that maybe they might have to adjust some things. Because the girl did have these things in her hair. I saw in the picture, but they were shoulder length. She had them to where they were just only coming to her shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay. They looked very clean and appropriate. Now, dreads on a little boy, I can't say I would go for that. No.
Yeah,
Okay?
I hear you.
I wouldn't go for that. But I think the compromise would be the key to this. Can she say it's her own hair? It is her own hair. She paid for it. Okay, and most times this is natural hair that they use to make these hairdos. Okay,
yes.
So her argument might be, yes, it is my hair because I paid for it, and two, it is natural because it's human hair. But I just hope compromise before anything else.
All right,
and talk about it. Okay.
All right, man. Thanks for the
you.
call.
All right, well, we're going to end it
That's
there.
a great way to end the call, okay?
It really
because
is.
the African American father sent his kids to school. They all abided by the rules, but he made a good suggestion. If we could sit down and talk about it, maybe we can reach a compromise.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. This quick 22-hour break. You got Mark Levin coming up. Thanks for listening to Offsides. We'll be back tomorrow.